Hello there, this is Chadderbox, and I'm a very busy person. But when N8Dev announced their game jam, I couldn't resist joining in. So when the theme was announced at 12 PM, I wasn't in to see it. As I said, I'm quite busy. I did however get home at about 4 in the afternoon, and when I saw the theme, I was quite interested. The theme was Break the System, but this game jam's different. In a normal game jam, you're usually handed a theme and told to go off and make a game using that theme. However, this is where this game jam gets more interesting. For this jam, there is a lore that your game needs to roughly relate to. And this lore was... I could almost feel its potential as they dropped it into my hand. A loud thump echoing through the area reminded me that this was not the end. And this lore idea is great. It certainly adds a bit more to the jam, and I reckon it could make a lot of the game significantly better than if they didn't have it. Now, I saw these prompts, and I had some pretty good ideas. My first idea was a first-person shooter, where you have to escape this prison-like facility with hacking minigames built in. But then I realised I have 7 days to make a game and a video, because I'm going away soon. Just a little bit of self-promo, I streamed all the work I did in this game, so you can subscribe to see when I'm live. But yeah, I quickly scrapped the first-person shooter idea, and I decided to just focus on the hacking minigame that I thought up. At this point, I only had 4 days to make the actual game, with limited time in those days, so I needed to get a move on. The idea was that you have these bases, and you need to connect them using a line. But the twist is, these lines can't touch each other, kinda like that game with the metal bars and the stick that you always see in museums and doctors' offices for children. But to add a bit of depth to the game, I'm also going to give the player a time limit. This makes them think faster, and may also increase the chances that they make a mistake, making it more fun when they succeed. After setting up all of the rubbish boilerplate, the first thing I did was make some art for the bases, which was easy enough considering they're literally just a circle. And after that, I set up a line renderer, which put simply, draws lines. But here comes the tricky part. I wanted the lines to connect the bases, which sounds simple enough, but then you remember that you want them to be able to disconnect, and you also don't want to be able to connect a line to a base that's already connected, and a load of other random edge cases, which is when you realise you have a pretty big problem on your hands. Despite this, I finished the system really quickly. Here it is, working perfectly. Wait, that isn't supposed to happen. Ignore that, nothing to see here. Sorry, did I say I finished it quickly? I meant it took about 4 hours to get this working. It really shouldn't have taken this long, but I kept deleting parts and reworking it because every approach I took seemed to come in from the wrong angle. Now I just needed to make sure that you couldn't cross the lines, adding a losing condition. But there was a problem with that. Unity's built-in solutions aren't very good for finite length line collisions and intersections, which wasn't very good because it meant that I'd have to work on implementing the solution myself. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you might have heard me say that I hate making collision systems. I actually can't escape them. I don't know why, I deliberately used a game engine with a collision system to avoid this. But here we go. I found some line collision detection code written in Java on Stack Overflow, and I quickly ported that over to C# so I could use that in Unity. So now I just need to write the main collision handler. So I did that by looping through every collision object every frame and checking if they collided. Luckily, this isn't too performance intensive because it's just comparing 4 points. Because otherwise, my small brain would have been in real trouble. And hey there, this is Editing Chadderbox here. While I'm recording the voiceover, I've literally just realised that I could instead have just used really small boxes to represent my lines. But you know, I did all of that, so great use of time. And after all of that effort, it finally worked, so I started working on other things, like levels. And while I was making the third level, I realised that the game wasn't very fun, which tends to be a problem if you're making a game. To combat this, I tried making the game more interesting by adding some obstacles to block your path, and I suppose they made the game a bit more challenging and fun, but it was still quite boring. So I added another type of base to where I can connect to, but this time it's a square, and circles can't connect to the squares. This was also still kinda boring. So I added yet another base after it was suggested by my chat, being a moving circle, but still, the game was kinda boring. Now this problem isn't really due to the lack of content. You see, good puzzle games tend to actually contain good puzzles, and when you solve them, you feel smart, which is fun. But to make good puzzles, you need to be smart, and I'm not smart, which is why most of my levels feel pretty lackluster. So I kept working on levels, trying to make them at least remotely interesting, but I'm not sure if I succeeded or not. After this, I started working on the timer, which isn't complicated. It just goes down until you complete the level, and if you don't complete the level and the timer hits 0, then you restart. But after that, the game is almost finished, and we just need some polish now. I first started working on the music, which was going to be my way of tying into the lore. To do this, I needed some heavy thumping, so I just strummed my guitar and sidechained the volume to make quite an eerie thumping sound, starting loud and getting quieter as the level progresses. I quickly implemented that and then moved on to working on the sound effects. And I had a bit of a disaster here. You see, in my audio editor Audacity, not the spyware version, don't worry, there's a button called Export, and a button called Export Selected. Now, it's very important that you press the right one, otherwise you accidentally export your entire project as an audio file. And guess what I did? Yep, exported the entire project. Not once, but 6 times. Let me show you a clip. Now, when they said break the system, I don't think they meant break the audio system. I was stuck with this problem for about half an hour until I realised my mistake and fixed it. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! At this point, I also realised that an awful background noise that was supposed to sound like music didn't quite convey the lore as much as I wanted. And so I wrote up some voice lines and asked people on stream if they could read them out. Thankfully, Ultra Black came in clutch, and he provided some pretty epic voice lines to go at the start and the end to give some more context. I quickly edited them to make them sound like they were coming out of a radio, and with a bit more polish and messing around with Text Mesh Pro, I added the main menu and the end scene, and that was the game done. I decided to name the game 101 because it's a hacking game and I thought binary fit, and I also thought it was smart that the 1s represent the lines and the 0 represents the bases. I built the game for Windows and it worked great, so I quickly set up an itch page and uploaded that. I then remembered that it's a game jam and basically nobody cares about your game if they can't play it on the web, so I built that, and it didn't work. My camera size was really off and I'm not sure why, so I had to quickly modify it until it worked and then re-uploaded it. After making a little logo and customising the page, we were ready to go. So yeah, the jam was pretty cool. You can check out the game on my itch page, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and you can check out my commercial game Propulsion on Steam too. Have a good day.